Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff Operations Officer, assisted the National Security Team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the Vice Commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
We're seeing a major increase in cancer rates amongst younger people. That is a fact. It is not an opinion. It is not a theory. It is reality. According to a 2023 study from the National Cancer Institute, cancer diagnoses for people under the age of 50 have been continuously rising for the past several decades. And it's not just one type of cancer. Breast cancer, colorectal cancer, melanoma, thyroid cancer are all showing up in higher numbers in younger age groups. All right, I want to share some numbers that I found that I was blown away by. Colorectal cancer, for example, has increased by about 50% in people under the age of 50 since the 1990s. Breast cancer in women under the age of 40 is increasing by about 2% each year. And while 2% may not sound like a lot, that's an annual uptick year over year. And melanoma, it's now one of the most common cancers in people under the age of 30.
You heard it. Cancer rates are on the rise dramatically in under 50 age groups. Welcome to Whistleblower Wednesday on the Rob Maness Show, and we're live on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. The number of new cancer cases in 2024 is projected to rise to more than 2 million compared with 1.83 million in 2022. More younger people are being diagnosed with and dying from certain cancers, including colorectal cancer. From 2017 to 2021, the rate of these cancers rose by more than 3% per year among people younger than 50 years old. This trend does not include data beyond 2021, but is a dramatic increase over the last 3 decades, and we should expect further increases are likely based on the trending. What's the cause? Some researchers focus on alcohol use, but others, like Dr. Casey Means, who we'll hear from in a clip in this show, think the problem is much more than that. And I agree. It includes massive changes we've seen in daily life the last 50 years, such as the constant low-level stress levels caused from cell phone use all day, every day, and the massive amounts of chemicals we have in our processed foods, not to mention the huge number of childhood vaccines that have increased compared to when I was a child. The news isn't all bad, as death rates due to cancer are declining because early detection and better treatments are being made available, and they're making a difference. Well, one organization working diligently in that space is called Cancer Doctor. CancerDoctor.com is an innovative platform designed to empower cancer patients by providing access to a comprehensive directory of certified doctors and treatment centers specializing in integrative and alternative cancer treatments. My guest today is Robert Carrillo. He's the Chief Safety Officer at Cancer Doctor. Robert's responsible for investigating and improving doctors and facilities. Robert, welcome to the Rob Maness Show.
Rob, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we were talking in the live audience before we came on air, and my host said, hey, this is kind of an unusual topic for you, sir. And one of the things I didn't mention to her in that, but I had talked about it on air a lot, is my wife's a breast cancer survivor. When I left the Air Force, it was in large part to help her with her treatment, and so that she would survive. And thank God she's more than 10 years clear, cancer-free to date today. So I understand what families go through. And tell folks a little bit about your background as to what led you to do this job before we dive into Cancer Doctor itself.
Well, thank you, Rob, for that background on yourself. I didn't know that, and I'm glad to hear that your wife is doing well today. I've been working in the healthcare industry for over 20 years now, but for the last 10 years, I've had the opportunity to work with cancer patients in particular. And that all came about because in 2014, my wife, Pamela, found a lump in her breast. And that began a quest for us to find out what are the best ways to take care of this, because she wasn't sold on going down the conventional route for cancer care like yourself and all of us, really. We've all had a family member or somebody that we know get a diagnosis and then get the standard of care, which normally will include one of these three: surgery, full dose chemotherapy, or radiation. And those treatments, though they may be effective at times, they are really harsh on the human body. But more often than not, they prove to be a failure. And we know that because those same types of treatments have been offered now for nearly 50 years, and cancer rates just continue to rise. That's how I got involved with this organization that I'm with, Cancer Doctor, and it was specifically because as my wife and I were investigating, looking for doctors that were providing this integrative care, we couldn't find a standardized methodology that existed in order to evaluate these facilities that are providing this level of care. I think all of us have heard by now that if somebody is receiving some form of an alternative health care, then they're obviously working with a quack, some witchcraft, or some other woo-woo type of healthcare that's being made available to them. And though I would say to you that there are definitely people in the healthcare arena, in the alternative healthcare arena, that I wouldn't send my dog to, there are also some very good men and women in this space, in the integrative alternative cancer care space, that are doing a good work, and they have some very creative ways to treat the patient that is received a cancer diagnosis. That's how it all came about for me. Additionally to that, I had a brother who at the age of 29 also got a cancer diagnosis, and that was a toil on our family as well. So I'm intimately acquainted with cancer at a family level, and I have spoken with hundreds of cancer patients now in the last 10 years. And so I've seen the direct result of conventional care, and I've seen the result of alternative care within these families themselves. And I speak to patients on a regular basis, and we're obviously evaluating the doctors and the healthcare facilities that are willing to offer a level of transparency by having our organization come in to investigate them on their dime in order to evaluate them to see if they are providing integrative alternative care in a safe manner to the patient. So that's a little bit about what we do, how I got involved with it. And so I appreciate you asking that question to begin our conversation today.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so the purpose behind creating CancerDoctor.com, I'll just call it that for simplicity's sake, was to make available a tool for new cancer diagnosis patients, or even previously ones, to be connected to certified or investigated doctors and facilities in this alternative treatment space?
Correct. You see, when the patient receives a diagnosis, they immediately are afraid. They're scared, and what I've learned is they're not scared of the cancer in and of itself. They're scared of the treatment they're going to receive, and that's treatment from conventional healthcare. That's what frightens them, and they really want to know: is there another way? Everyone's going to get on the internet today, do some investigating, best treatments for cancer, et cetera. And maybe they stumble upon some type of alternative or integrative care. They begin to speak with their family members about this. And then family members or close friends say, stay away from that. That's lunacy. Don't do anything like that. And rightfully so. They're doing this because they love their family member. They want to protect their best interest. And that's where we come in. What we have put together is a 200-point safety audit. It's an inspection, and I do it personally. Where I go in and I evaluate the center. The very first time that we go into a facility that's providing integrative or alternative care, we're going to be there for a couple of days. and we're going to evaluate it from top to bottom. This also includes speaking to their past patients and their existing patients. If they don't meet a particular safety criteria, then we do not approve to have them on our web pages as a partner center. And I specifically mentioned partner because on our web pages, there are over 1,500 centers and physicians combined. We have not inspected every single one of them. As you can imagine, that would be a tremendous amount of work. However, we have spoken by telephone to evaluate the vast majority of them. Others, we have done some remote audits, but then on the case of the partner centers, we've actually been there in person to evaluate them. And based upon our working relationship with these centers, we go in annually as well. As a result of that, when we field telephone calls or inquiries from a cancer patient, we're able to discuss with them these partner centers and the work they do and why we believe they are a center that they should go in contact and evaluate for themselves in the whole decision-making process. The point of this is to raise the level of credibility among those physicians that are doing this type of work, provide the reassurances to the cancer patient that there are some very good integrative physicians that are doing things that are outside the box that will definitely reduce the amount of side effects or the severity of the side effects that they'll experience after beginning a cancer treatment regimen, and also improve their outcomes as well. Because here's the reality, Rob, when somebody gets straight up conventional cancer care, their immune system is being destroyed. And once that immune system is destroyed, it makes it very, very difficult for the patient to recover from such aggressive treatment. And at that point, life changes for them. And for most of them, it changes permanently because they have long-term side effects, even if they're fortunate enough to make it beyond the 5-year survival mark, which is how the cancer industry measures success. They measure it if the patient is still breathing 5 years later after the original date of the diagnosis, they consider that a success. But that doesn't take into consideration the quality of the patient's life. And I've spoken to enough patients and I've heard these words, I'm still alive, but I wish I was dead because I'm suffering with this or that. Mm-hmm. That's a very painful thing to hear from a patient. I'll never forget, and this is just coming to my mind right now, a medical doctor in the conventional world, a surgeon, and he met my wife, and the conversation began. He obviously realized that she had been diagnosed with cancer years before, and he was surprised at her presentation. And when we say presentation, we're talking about how the patient presents to a medical doctor. He was surprised at her presentation, having gone with cancer as long as she had been dealing with it. Now, my wife only had integrative care for the entirety of this time. This surgeon's wife was an 11-year survivor of breast cancer. But here's what he told me. Mm-hmm. She was blind. She was legally blind. And she had lost a limb that had been amputated, an arm. And this was due to side effects from conventional treatment. These were the side effects from conventional cancer care. His wife, who was still alive 11 years later, but missing an eye and an arm, and still suffering a lot of side effects from the harsh treatment. We're here to say there's a better way. There is most definitely a better way, and the public needs to become aware of this way because there are 5,500 new cases of cancer every day in this country, and very soon now, the number's going to hit 1 out of 2 people. 1 out of 2 people are going to get diagnosed in their lifetime. And that's just not acceptable. That's not acceptable. We can no longer take our health for granted. You are correct. We are surrounded with a vast array of carcinogens. It's a very polluted world. But there are 2 things that everybody watching this can do. Number 1, change what you eat. You are what you eat. Your food. Yeah. Defines your body, okay? That's number 1.
Okay. And Robert, we're going to take a break right now. We'll come back. We'll hear for a clip from Dr. Casey Means about one of those things she talks about real quick when we come back is our food. And we'll continue this discussion with Cancer Doctor's Chief Safety Officer, Robert Carrillo, here, and dive into what is alternative care? What is integrative care? How does it work? Where can you find it? Because that's what Cancer Doctor does, is it explains to people what's going on, what's available, and how to find it in a safe and effective way. We'll be right back on the Rob Maness Show at Worldview 2.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. Melissa and I have been taking Bella Grace, this powerful elixir, since last fall, 2023. The results have been amazing. My hands would crack and bleed, deep cuts and cracks every winter for years. No matter what we did, we couldn't get them to stop cracking and bleeding. This year, I took Bella Grace, no cracking, no bleeding. My acid reflux, gone. Haven't had to take a Pepsid. My hair growth, the last 2 times I had my hair cut, the lady had to use thinning shears on my hair. That's amazing. We've also received incredible feedback from you, our listening audience, and the impact it's had for you. This is loaded with astaxanthin. That's a powerful antioxidant. Collagen, but top grade collagen. Studies show 95% of it is being absorbed in the body because of the way they develop it. Then we have something called cat's claw. That's an anti-inflammatory from a vine in Peru. It's the bark, and it's an anti-inflammatory. There are about 80 clinical trials on Bella Grace. Please get a subscription now and save. MelissaHouseBG.com.
We're talking here about why cancer rates are going up in young people, and they're going up monumentally under the age of 50. And we know this is not a genetic issue fundamentally because genes haven't changed in the past 100 years, and we're not even really screening for these people. This is showing up clinically in this younger population. So then the question, of course, is why in God's name is this happening?
Hold. When you say we're not really screening, you mean we're not doing like a mammogram. You're saying they're coming in with cancer is what you're saying.
Yeah,
Is that what you mean?
there aren't really widespread public health screening mechanisms for cancer.
So they're just they're coming in.
They're showing up with
advanced.
blood in their stool. You know,
Jesus. Okay.
or big lumps, which is really like the tip of the iceberg of something that's been going on in the body, likely for a long time. And that, of course, begs the question: why in God's name is this happening? If we all sort of thought, well, cancer is a genetic mutation, the genes aren't changing that quickly, right? So we have to start thinking about exposures. And what we were talking about yesterday was that it's hard fundamentally because of the way we do science in this country to fully understand exactly what's happening, because it's very difficult to do a study looking at someone's, for instance, phthalate exposure over the course of the 20 years of their life and exactly how that's leading to one type of cancer. The reality is we are bodies in the modern industrial urbanized world living in a monumental stew of new toxins that did not exist 50 years ago. Toxins that are psychological, the fact that we're under chronic low-grade stress, addicted to our phones all the time and constantly seeing fear-inducing media, which puts our body in a state of chronic inflammation. We've got 80,000 synthetic toxins in our food, water, air, personal care products, home products that did not exist 100 years ago. We've got EMFs. We've got now over 70 vaccines in the vaccine schedule. There was a fraction of them 50 years ago. We've got 70% of our calories coming from ultra-processed food made in a factory. We have industrial agriculture that's murdering our soil, so we don't have nutrients in our food. We're not exercising. We're inside 93.5% of the day. Everything has changed in the past 75 years.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Whistleblower Wednesday here, and we're live on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. And my guest today is the Chief Safety Officer for Cancer Doctor. CancerDoctor.com is where you can find them, Robert Carrillo. Robert, welcome back. That was Dr. Casey Means talking about the environment, not necessarily the environment like an environmentalist thinks about the grass and all that, but the environment human beings find themselves living within today, where we are just inundated with all types of things like the toxins she was talking about, but the low-grade stress and the cell phone use, the smartphones, that is something that a lot of people don't really think about when they're talking about health these days. And to get to the conventional treatments for cancers we were talking about earlier, it doesn't seem to me, and I know a little bit about the big three, surgery, chemo, radiation, and those kind of treatments, those conventional treatments. When you talk to the doctors and the experts after a diagnosis like that, we didn't really hear about any of the things that Dr. Means was just talking about there.
Yeah, that's correct. And thank you for playing that clip of Dr. Casey Means. If anyone's not familiar with Dr. Casey Means, she's a Stanford-educated neck and head surgeon, and she knows what she's talking about. She's right on the money. All of those comments that she just made on that clip, they're true. They're very true. And unfortunately, in conventional care, once again, when someone gets a diagnosis in the United States of America, the oncologist, the only thing they can recommend to that patient per law is surgery, chemotherapy, or radiation. They're bound to that. Even if they know it's not going to be successful, even if they personally believe that there is something else the patient should do instead, that's not something that they can recommend. And it's unfortunate. Dr. William Makis, if no one is familiar with him, they should look him up. Dr. William Makis is an oncologist. His field of study is in radiology, immunology. He's out of Canada. Very incredible doctor. And he echoes the same thing. I mean, he's seeing right now a high rate of turbo cancers that are taking place among young people. And the fact that conventional care is not going to help them. They're in great danger, and never before in the history of our country have we had so many cases of cancer as it relates to the increase of cancer rates. You know, to give you an idea of this, there are cancer registries worldwide. Okay, so all cancers are being tabulated in the world, and there are higher numbers of cancer patients since the release of the COVID vaccine. And we need to ask why that is. Why are there more cases of cancer since this particular vaccine was released? What has happened to our societies? This isn't right. And the only ones that can change this is the public. The public will change the healthcare paradigm when they say, enough is enough. I'm not going to do this. I demand better healthcare. And better healthcare begins with radically, not by a little bit, radically changing your lifestyle. And that begins with the quality of food that you consume. It means that we demand that our food producers put out better quality of food that are not filled with carcinogens. And it also demands that we ourselves begin to move these physical bodies and get outside and begin exercising. If we would just do those two things, change the food we eat, change the way we move our bodies, we would create a defense mechanism within our very bodies in order to fight off the alarming rates of cancer that are taking place. Am I saying it's a cure-all? No. But let me tell you, we know from published studies that lifestyle changes as it relates to diet and exercise are the absolute best way to improve the outcome of the physical body as it relates to the changing of our very DNA to fighting off infections, diseases, and having a very good long-term prognosis when we have a health crisis. So these things are really, really important. And the cancer treatment centers that we work with, they advocate that. As a matter of fact, they tell patients if they're not prepared to radically change their lifestyle, they do not need to sign up and pay hard-earned money to go to their treatment centers. Because here's the reality. Insurance is not going to pay for this. The patient's going to pay out of pocket. The patient must be committed to radically changing their way of life if they're going to go down this route. It is a very active way of treating cancer. And when I say active, I'm talking on the part of the patient. They're going to be a participant. In conventional care, the patient is passive. They go in, they receive an infusion, they sit back, and nothing has to change. Their oncologist will give them candy in the lobby of the office, and yet we know that sugar is a fuel source for cancer cells, but yet we don't tell the public that, right? This is a tragedy. And as somebody that's been working with cancer patients for 10 years, I'll sit there sometimes and I shake my head in disgust, saying to myself, do we not love human beings? I mean, do we not love our own species? Why are we not helping them? What is wrong with our society? I mean, I really love people. I want to see them do well. And nothing hurts me more, and I'm sure yourself, Rob, as well, with your wife, when someone gets a health crisis now, it hurts me. It hurts me inside. I'm not the same human being anymore, right? And I'm like, I want the best for them. I can't do it for them, but I can at least turn on the light and say, hey, you know what? There's other options. And that's why Cancer Doctor exists, to provide them other options.
And let's talk about some of those other options. You've mentioned a couple of terms multiple times here: alternative cancer treatment and integrative cancer treatment. What does alternative cancer treatment mean from Cancer Doctor's perspective?
Great question. So when we talk about alternative cancer treatment, we're now talking about either an adjunctive therapy. An adjunctive therapy would be something outside of full dose chemotherapies or full doses of radiation or a surgery. Something outside of that would be an alternative to that standard of care. So for example, let's say that the facility was offering a full body hyperthermia as an adjunctive therapy. And this is actually a device where a patient is laying down and their core body temperature is being raised artificially to 104 degrees or higher. This is being done under the supervision of a medical doctor, a registered nurse. The core temperature is being taken up over a period of 2 hours. It's being held for 2 hours, and then it's being brought back down for 2 hours. Why is this done? Because we know that cancer cells become weakened under really high temperatures and can even die. So what these physicians are doing is creating an artificial fever in layman's terms. All right, this would be an alternative form of care, as an example. Or maybe the facility is offering also, in addition to something like this, high dosages of vitamin C. Everybody is familiar with vitamin C, but what they're not aware of is that high doses of vitamin C, and I'm speaking now about doses of 50 grams or higher, maybe even doses of 100 grams, creates oxidative stress on the cells of the body. And this is why it's important. Vitamin C is an antioxidant at low doses. The way we take it at home, it's an antioxidant. But when it gets to about 50 grams or more, in some cases, depending on the patient, right? You have to contextualize this, but it could be over 25 grams. It creates oxidative stress in the body and it kills cells. Why is this important? Chemotherapy is an agent. The way it kills cancer cells is by creating oxidative stress in the body, and it kills the cancer cell under that oxidative stress. Here's the problem. It also kills the healthy cells under oxidative stress. Now you compare this to high dose vitamin C, which is killing cancer cells with oxidative stress, but vitamin C doesn't kill the healthy cells with that oxidative stress. So vitamin C would be, oh wow, I think I'd rather have some vitamin C. Now, to be fair, is high dose vitamin C going to kill cancer cells at the rate that an aggressive chemotherapy agent does? No, and we're not saying that it does. What we're saying is that it is a valuable tool in the tool bag. It's an alternative tool, and patients should be aware of it. There are patients that receive high dose vitamin C 1 time a week, 3 times a week in some of these facilities that they go to, okay? It's effective, it helps, it works, and it protects the patient's immune system. These would be examples of just a couple of things of many alternative forms of care for the cancer patient in one of these facilities.
Well, thanks, Robert. We got to take another break. When we come back, I want to we'll have a little clip about death rates. I think accessing treatment, and this goes towards a conventional type of treatment, more conventional type of treatment. But I think the question of accessing different treatments is important, and Cancer Doctor can be seems to be very helpful for getting patients to the right treatment facility so that it can be assessed properly through their system of alternative and integrative care. And I want to jump into the term of integrative care too. So we'll be right back on the Rob Maness Show. It's Whistleblower Wednesday, and we're with Cancer Doctor's Chief Safety Officer, Robert Carrillo. We'll be right back.
We live in uncertain times. In fact, we live at a time when our own governments all over the world are warning us that there could be big problems with our power grid. World War III seems to be right on the horizon. Let me ask you this. Do you have a satellite phone? Should communications go down with cell towers? Do you have a satellite phone to get a hold of that college student or your spouse who travels, whatever it might be, to get a hold of your senior adult parents? We have satellite phones at worldviewtalk.com, and you get the satellite phone for free when you sign up for their very reasonable payment programs for the service. Sign up for the service with a reasonable contract, get the satellite phone for free. Worldviewtalk.com. You'll also find they have, well, what I now have, which is a solar generator. Yeah, I have a gas generator, an LP propane generator, but what if that goes down? I want to back up to my backup. So I now have a solar generator as well. You'll find them at worldviewtalk.com. Check it out today, worldviewtalk.com.
On compassionate grounds.
8 years ago, Warren Kotler was told he had 3 to 5 years to live. The diagnosis, stage 4 breast cancer, a rare illness among men.
So there's letrozole, Ibrance.
Thanks to a cocktail of drug treatments and radiation therapy, he's outlived the prognosis.
Stick around long enough, there's new drugs that are going to be coming online, and hopefully those will be of benefit.
A month and a half ago, his oncologist did recommend a new drug, TrueCap, which could hold off the cancer growing for several months. The problem, it's prohibitively expensive. The drug manufacturer could cover the cost on compassionate grounds, but says it can't because Health Canada has only approved the drug for women, not men.
I'm being denied access to a drug that might have a benefit to me.
In the United States and the European Union, the drug has been approved for men and women. Health Canada says too few men were involved in the clinical study to draw conclusions. And for those limited number of men, the drug appeared to stop the cancer from getting worse for about 2 months. The agency is also worried about side effects like diarrhea and rash.
It's definitely an effective option.
Warren's oncologist thinks it could still help.
The disease biology is very similar in men and women. We know that many of our treatments we give are equally effective.
Because the disease is so unusual in men, it could take years to gather the same amount of data as for women, and waiting could mean life or death for some patients.
You just have to go with the data that you have and use some common sense and scientific reasoning. And then
some are calling for more flexibility, even as Health Canada balances risk and benefit.
They don't want to expose anyone to undue toxicity. On the other hand, we're at a point where we want more access to better drugs that will help people, and that's very urgent.
An urgency Warren knows too well.
Life is great. I need to continue. I have a lot to do. I have a big list.
Jennifer Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Whistleblower Wednesday, and we're talking about the rise in cancer incidents, especially under people under the age of 50 years of age over the last 30 years, and the potential rise that we may be seeing due to things like the COVID-19 vaccine with these turbo cancers that we're beginning to hear about just now with the Chief Safety Officer for CancerDoctor.com, which connects patients to alternative and integrative cancer treatment facilities that they have inspected and audited themselves for the most part and have a relationship with. Robert, that clip was more along the conventional lines, but it reminded me of why I'm opposed to government health care. and, and that some regulation in the things that we do to and with our bodies from a medical perspective, chemicals and those kind of things is a good thing. But that's a case of overregulation, and it reminded me of the right to try law that the Trump administration, the last one, got passed. And I was thinking about that, which is why I chose that clip when I was researching for this show on your organization, because I mean, you kind of y'all are you talked about alternative treatments and some examples. What is meant by integrative cancer treatment, and how is that different than alternative cancer treatment?
Rob, I'm so thankful that you're asking these questions because these are so important. The patient can easily get lost in the nomenclature of this terminology within the field of cancer. So here's what we're talking about when we say integrative. By integrative, we're talking about a physician that is taking the best of the conventional world and is taking the best of the alternative world and putting them together. I'll give you an example now of this. So we work with doctors that do use chemotherapy, for example, but they're going to use it at a fractionated dose. In other words, what would typically be done for the patient in a conventional setting is a full dose of chemotherapy. And by the way, there are over 100 different chemo agents. So when we hear the word chemotherapy, there isn't just one, there's a lot of them out there. Now, the doctors know which chemotherapies are recommended for which cancers, all right, based on history of the patient population studies. So what they would do is they would take that chemo agent, the one that's selected, and they would reduce the dosage of it itself to a fractionated dose. And instead of giving the full dose, they will give a fractionated dose, a little bit of that chemo agent once a week, maybe twice a week, in combination with these other alternative therapies that the patient is receiving on a daily basis to protect the immune system and also to make cancer cells more vulnerable, all right, so that they will die. So it's bringing the two combined. Another example of this, Rob, would be off-label drugs. So, for example, a drug that has been prescribed for, let's say, killing fungus in the human body. There are certain drugs in that line that are being repurposed for cancer because there are studies that have demonstrated, hey, this drug actually kills cancer cells and with minimal side effects. Ivermectin would be an example of this. Okay, now there are a lot of drugs that are available that actually have an anti-cancer fighting effect. And there are integrative physicians that know this and incorporate it into the tool bag. So here's what I like about integrative care. Unlike the conventional model where you have the big three, the surgery, the chemo, the radiation, the integrative physician, he doesn't have three. He may have 23 things to do, and he will gladly incorporate them on a daily basis or weekly basis in order to improve the response to the treatment and protect the patient's immune system to the point where the patient will say things like, gosh, this isn't that bad. This is not that bad. Now, how do I know this? Because I have been with patients in person that have had conventional care already, and they've done everything they could do in conventional care, and their oncologist has said, there's nothing left for us to do. There's nothing more we could do. You could go home to pass away now, which is just a terrible thing to tell a human being, in my opinion. And my personal opinion is not that there's no more to do, is that medical insurance has reached the maximum of what they will pay for the patient, first of all. And second of all, they're not going to do anything outside the standard of care of conventional medicine. So go home. All right. This patient ends up in an integrated facility, and there they are getting treated. And then I meet them on an inspection, and I talk to them, and I get their story. And I ask them a question along these lines. You've been here now for a period of 2 weeks. Tell me, what are the side effects that you're feeling here as you're doing this compared to your conventional care? And they say things like this. This is a walk in the park. If I would have known it was going to be this easy, I would have done this first. Oh, I feel like a fool. I didn't do this first. And I didn't do it because I was going to have to pay out of pocket, but my life is worth paying out of pocket for. It's my life, right? Yeah. So that gives you a snapshot of integrative care.
So we've got a live audience, and we have some hands up over there. I let them ask questions periodically during the show. So I want to take some questions from the live audience. Robert,
let's do it.
Putting out some great information. Our host is Shell in our Spaces audience. Go ahead, Shell.
So we have a question from the audience. Adina asks, how much liquid vitamin C should a female take as a dose?
So I want to respond back to Adina. Was the question how much vitamin C should she be taking? Was that the question?
A female.
Yes.
Yeah.
For a female.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. So first of all, I want to let Adina know that I myself am not a medical doctor and I cannot give you medical advice. All right. I'm in safety and I work with medical doctors. And also, there isn't a medical doctor that would answer that question to you in a forum like this. Here's why, just so that you know the disclaimer, because sometimes patients become frustrated with not being able to get an answer. There must be a patient-doctor relationship that's established, and the doctor needs to evaluate the patient before they begin making recommendations or giving out a prescription for something. Having said that, Adina, here's what I would tell you. If we're talking about vitamin C over the counter and something that you're taking orally, personally, I recommend to my friends, take a gram of vitamin C, take 2, take 3, take 4 grams of oral vitamin C if you like. It's not going to hurt you. You're not going to overdose on vitamin C. I will tell you this, at very high dosages orally, we're speaking now of oral vitamin C, it will have a diuretic effect. So if you took something like 10 grams of vitamin C, 15 grams of vitamin C orally, it would onset a case of diarrhea. Also, if you were constipated, I have friends that will actually increase their dosages of vitamin C orally because they want to produce a bowel movement. So that's something that you need to be aware of. I myself personally, I take 4 grams of oral vitamin C every single day of my life, and I've been doing it for years.
Yeah, I've been taking vitamin C at that same level for about 25 years now myself. So good question though, and great answer. I mean, look, folks, neither one of us are a medical doctor, and we're not giving medical advice here. What we are talking about is information that you can use to put to good use if you get a cancer diagnosis, or just take a look at your diet. I mean, all of these bits of information are factual. There's no opinion really in what we're talking about. Go check them out. You can find Cancer Doctor at cancerdoctor.com, and they openly list their partner facilities, and then they explain how they rate these facilities and the terms they use for them, and it depends directly on the relationship they have with them. And speaking of the relationships, Robert, so when you are working with a partner facility and a prospective patient, how does Cancer Doctor get paid?
Excellent question. Thank you for asking that question. First of all, we make 0 commissions off cancer patients. We are not getting paid by any doctor anywhere in the world to send them a cancer patient. I want to make that really, really clear. And I say that because it breaks my heart that when someone is in a health crisis, everybody wants to market to them and make $1 off them. And that really bothers me. It's not something that we're involved with. We get paid by the facilities that partner with us to go in and inspect them annually. With those facilities also that are willing to have us evaluate them remotely at a distance. We have audits that go anywhere from as little as 25 questions to 200 points, right? That they're broad. And so we get paid by those individuals that want a level of transparency. We think transparency is important. Here's what we tell the doctors that approach us. We have facilities that approach us that want to work with us. They need to pay for it. Here's why. They're asking for patients to pay out of their pocket to come get integrative or alternative care. But the patient has no level of security. Who's going to provide it? We're an independent third party, and we go in there to do that on behalf of the cancer patient. Somebody has to pay for it. It's going to be the doctor. Now, the question comes up, well, what reassurances are there that we will remain unbiased, that we won't just take the money? That's not how we operate. Obviously, if we don't have our personal integrity, we have nothing. I will tell you this, 90% of the cancer treatment centers that have come to us to partner with us, which is our highest seal of approval. That means we go there in person. 90% of the requests, they do not make it. They do not get approved. Do you understand? So we can't work with them. They don't meet the criteria. We're not in this for the money. We're in this because we want to help human beings, because everyone in our organization has been touched in some way by cancer. And this is how important it is to us, Rob. Case in point, this year we're holding our second annual fundraiser at Cancer Doctor. We call it $100,000 for one cancer patient. And you can find details about this with a nonprofit that we're working with. The nonprofit is found at cancerguide.foundation, cancerguide.foundation, and you can make a donation there. We're looking to raise $100,000 to give it away to one cancer patient that is looking for integrative or alternative care and needs help paying for it. We did this last year, and we gave away tens of thousands of dollars to one cancer patient that ended up going to an integrative center that we've evaluated as well. But they can pick the center that they want to go to. So we invite people to go to cancerguide.foundation, make a donation, but when they go there, if you have a diagnosis of cancer, scroll down to the bottom of the page and enter your name for the drawing. We will randomly draw the winner. We are conducting this fundraiser on October the 25th through the 27th. We're going to hike for 77 miles, no sleep, no camping, point to point in the Carolinas, part of it through the Appalachians. And we're doing it because we identify with the people that we work with. Okay. And so I would encourage everyone to get the word out about that. So that's how we get paid from the doctors themselves. And we're not getting any kind of kickbacks or commissions for this work. I want to make that clear.
Thank you so much for going into detail on that. We've got to take our last break, going into the last segment here. And we'll see a little clip about death rates declining among cancer patients. So the news isn't all bad. And I want to talk with Robert about what his organization is seeing with their partners as far as success rates and those kinds of things. And we'll get to that last question in the audience over there. I'll be right back on Whistleblower Wednesday on Worldview Tube and X Spaces Simulcast.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. I want to thank you for all your support at wvwfoundation.com that helps make possible pushing out 24/7 content for free. Without your support, we'd have to put it all behind a paywall. But thanks to you and your support through our foundation, we're able to push it out for free as a broadcast service and broadcast ministry of WVW Foundation. Please consider going there and setting up an automatic monthly contribution, or go there and make an occasional contribution. If you prefer to support us through the mail, you'll find our mailing address there at wvwfoundation.com. You can also call and make your contribution over the phone by calling 901-825-0652. That's 901-825-0652. Again, all these details are available at wvwfoundation.com. Thank you for your support as we try to help people around the world understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview.
Over the last 30 years, the U.S. has seen a 33% drop in the overall cancer death rate. That's according to the latest cancer progress report just released by the American Association for Cancer Research. The National Desk Jeff Harris joins us. Jeff, you read through the report tonight. Why has the death rate gone down?
According to that report, Dee, lower smoking rates, also treatment improvements, and the third there, earlier detection, are all reasons that the rate has now dropped. But there is still a risk factor that isn't as well known. It's alcohol. According to the report, drinking too much alcohol increases the risk for 6 different types of cancer, including breast cancer, liver cancer, also stomach cancer. The report also says that in 2019, 5.4% of cancers were attributed to alcohol consumption, plus alcohol intake at an early age can increase the risk of cancer later in life. The American Association for Cancer Research, writing in that report, quote, thanks to the research-driven advances, more than 18 million individuals with a history of cancer were alive in the United States as of January 1st, 2022, and the number is projected to rise to 26 million by the year 2040. When it comes to children and adolescents, the report also found that the cancer death rate went down as well, falling 24% in the past 2 decades.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. We're live on Worldview Tube, and it's Whistleblower Wednesday here. My guest is the Chief Safety Officer for CancerDoctor.com, Robert Carrillo. And Robert, as I said, not all the news is bad, but a couple of things jumped out at me when I saw this clip that I want to get your take on. One is improvements in treatments. Now, we've talked about new chemotherapy drugs. We've talked about alternative and integrated treatments. Is there any data that shows the focus moving towards integrated treatments or alternative treatments in addition to the conventional treatments is having a positive effect on these death rates?
Rob, that's an excellent question. I can only speak for myself from my vantage point and what I'm witnessing. I have noticed over the last, I would say, 5 to 7 years, the conventional marketplace that works with cancer patients beginning to market this idea that they're providing some type of integrative care or immune boosting type of care, but I'm not seeing it with the patients that I speak with in person that have had conventional care in the last 5 years. I'm not seeing it. I think that's a lot of marketing, to be frank with you. And also the notion that the numbers are improving, that the data as it relates to deaths, it's getting better. You and I both know that statistics can become very meaningless depending upon how you want to formulate your statistic. The same holds true in the integrative or alternative healthcare space, because here's the challenge. When a patient is treated for a cancer and they go home, we do not know anything about their lifestyle. We don't know. Even in conventional care, there are patients that are doing alternative care on the side. They've incorporated it without the knowledge of their doctors. I know, I've spoken to them, and they're doing well, and their doctors think they're doing well in their conventional care. But the reality is they're complementing that care with some other type of alternative form of medicine, if that makes sense. So to anyone that's listening to this, they need to take caution with that data and not to be driven by statistics. And that includes statistics for the alternative or the integrative side as well, because we don't know the patient's lifestyle. And that's really, really important here.
Yeah, it absolutely is. I mean, just like you mentioned, sugar is a feeder for cancer cells. Well, stress in the human body and the human mind is also exacerbates the aggressiveness of cancer. We know that. So a lot of patients, I've worked with my wife to try to reduce her stress levels and keep a positive outlook when she was under treatment, because we knew that. And even the conventional doctors would talk about that with us. So that's a form of alternative treatment that gets combined with conventional treatment all the time. And there really is no systematic way of collecting that type of data over time for any patient, because every human being is different. Well, we've got more questions over in the audience. I want to go over there and take one real quick. Shell, go ahead.
We have Matt, sir.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So Robert, how are you guys getting the word out about your practice, other than through media hits like this? And do you have partners in all 50 states?
Great question. So, first of all, at one point in time, the word got out organically on the internet to the tune of, we used to have 700,000 unique visitors per month to our website. Think of it, 700,000 unique visitors a month to our website. That happened at one time until censorship on the largest search engine on the internet. And they crushed us because they started censoring integrative, alternative healthcare sites. That's a reality. And as a result, we took a hit and less people found out about us. And then we started to pay for online advertising. And why did we do this? Because people are online. But guess what? That was getting censored too. What to do? So we are still receiving inquiries on organic searches on cancerdoctor.com, and we are reaching out to media outlets such as Rob's and others, and word of mouth, obviously. But by and large, we depend on the internet like everybody else does today. As it relates to centers, yes, we work with centers all across the country. But when it comes to the partner centers, and a partner center is a facility that's fully dedicated to treating cancer. Not every healthcare professional on cancer.com is dedicated to treating cancer. And what I mean by that is they provide some type of adjunctive therapy that a patient with cancer benefits from. But when it comes to a dedicated center that is doing intervention for a cancer patient, we have a few partner centers. We have one in Florida. The name of that facility is Utopia Wellness. You can look them up on the internet, Utopia Wellness. They're in Florida and Tampa. Out in Arizona and Mesa, we have an Oasis of Healing that could be found. They're in Mesa, Arizona, and they're doing a fine job. And even outside of the United States, down in Tijuana, Mexico, we work with a center called Immunity Therapy Center. That's Immunity Therapy Center. And in Tijuana, Mexico, the medical director there is Dr. Carlos Bautista. In Mesa, Arizona, it is Dr. Thomas Lodi. And then in Florida, it's Dr. Carlos Garcia. And these are all facilities that have been treating patients that have cancer for well over 25 years now, a very long time. They're not rookies at what they do. And they approach it in many ways on a similar way, in other ways differently, right? Because these physicians, they're doing their own independent research, and they also have their convictions as to how to best serve that patient, right, that comes to them. And let me say this, if you have a cancer diagnosis and you're in it to win it, do not let a border or a territory determine what you're going to do. This is a health crisis, and what you should be willing to do is anything, and I mean anything, to get ahead of this condition and to beat it back. So don't let that restrict you in any way, shape, or form. However, if you're looking for an adjunctive therapy, you need something to come alongside of what you're doing already, there are centers all across the country that you're going to find on our webpage as well. Thank you for the question.
Well, Robert, thank you so much for spending so much time with us. It's our pleasure to bring this information to our audience. I hear you about censorship. We were my website at robmaness.com was only live for about 4 months. It was receiving almost 1 million views a month until October 1st, 2020, when it was deemed a conservative political website and censored and crushed down to almost no traffic whatsoever, except for people that I know that send it there. Well, tell folks how they can find you guys. We're coming up with about 30 seconds left. And thank you again for coming on.
The easiest way to find us is go to cancerdoctor.com. That's cancerdoctor.com. We also have some podcasts that are found on the website. You could look up a partner center. You could send in an inquiry, and I'll personally speak with you. All right. Thanks, Rob, for having me on the show today.
Thank you so much, and thanks for everything that you all do. We appreciate that. You're in our prayers for sure. Tomorrow is Truth Thursday, and got another new author. He's a veteran. His name is Jesse Petrillo. He's got a new book out. It takes 1,000 years. If it takes 1,000 years, it's about the Islamist jihadists and what they want to do to you and me. And my other guest this week, Robert Spencer of Jihad Watch, actually wrote one of the parts of the foreword for this particular book. So I'm excited to bring Jesse on to talk about this book and what he saw in Afghanistan and other combat zones directly fighting these crazy Islamist jihadists. We'll see you tomorrow on Truth Thursday.